Paying Babes. This is an adult podcast made for adult ears. We dive deep into historical events that might make some of y'all blush or feel uncomfortable over. So, if you're not an adult or an adult who prefers to steer clear from subjects and topics that get a little bit naughty, now might be the time to click away. For the rest of you darling souls, hello and welcome. Ready to pay for it? Me too. But before we dive in, if you love your history with a spicy twist, please consider subscribing on your favorite platform. It really does help us keep going here. All right, enough foreplay. Let's head straight to the red light district. I'm ready if you are.
I got something between my legs that'll make a dead man come. Oh, that. I got something between my legs that'll make a dead man come. Oh, that. I'm gonna turn back my mattress and let you all my springs. I want you to find me, daddy, till the bell do ring. Oh, daddy, I want you to shave and dry.
Hello, my name is Summer, and this is Paying for It. Thank you for being here for episode 46. Hello, my lovely listeners, and welcome back to Paying for It. You already know that this is a podcast where we dive into the untold stories of ladies of the evening. Their glittering highs, their scandalous lows, and everything in between. Whether you're a history buff, a drama lover, or just here for the tea, you are in the right place. Before we jump into today's episode, let me remind you what makes this podcast so special. We're not just rehashing old history books. Oh no, babes. We are bringing the sass, the elegance, and a dash of humor to the stories of women who lived unapologetically and reshaped their world, one red light district at a time. If you've been with us for a while, welcome back. You know the drill. Sit back, relax, and prepare for another jaw-dropping chapter. If you're new here, don't worry, you are not late to the party. We've got plenty of episodes for you to catch up on, and every single one of them is dripping with intrigue and inspiration. But before we dive into today's deliciously messy story, let's talk about how you can keep the Paying for It magic alive. Follow us on social media, whether you're scrolling through Instagram, liking tweets on X, or diving into the TikTok content. We're there with all the behind the scenes goodness, and you can find us at Paying for It Media. Visit our website at payingforitmedia.com. You'll find bonus content, photos of the places and people we talk about, and maybe even some resources if you're feeling like a history detective yourself. Leave a review. This is so important, y'all. Your reviews help others find us and this podcast and give me the warm and fuzzies. Plus, it's your chance to tell me what you love and what you want more of. And of course, share the podcast with your friends. I mean, why wouldn't you? Who doesn't love a good scandal-filled history lesson? Told with an extra little sparkle, of course. All right. Now that we've handled the business side of things, let's get back to what we're really here for. You know the show is all about women who refuse to play by the rules, who built their own empires, and who left unforgettable mark on history. Today's episode is no exception, and I promise you, it's going to be one heck of a ride. But before we get to all that, how the heck are you? Welcome back to the first episode, the first real episode, new episode, because they're all real, So the first new episode of 2025. Happy New Year. I hope you guys are having a good start to the new year. How was your Christmas? How was your New Year's? Let's talk about it. I'd love to know about it. Mine was good. We made meatball subs and just hung out at home and drank wine. That is what we did. New Year's Eve, we went to Austin. We drove up early, went to a bookstore, ate a lot of food, and then we went to see Duncan Trussell at the Comedy Mothership, which is Joe Rogan's comedy club? Couldn't think of what I was trying to think of. But yeah, Joe Rogan's comedy club. So that was our little time. And yeah, if you'd like to see some of that, I have my Booktube channel, which is Bookish Hippie, that I might link below. And I did a little vlog. It's just a little clip of Austin. I'm a little awkward still vlogging outside in the public, in the world. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me, though. We have been, let me talk about it. I changed the mic. I put it back on its stand because the tension arm thing, I have it still right here. Oh my gosh, it's so annoying in the videos. So I'm just constantly pulling it and yanking it, and I'm hoping this time with it on the thing, you can still hear me, and it keeps the volume at a decent level. And I'm not touching and fiddling it with the whole time. So then you get to see, if you're watching on YouTube, all my freaking hand movements, because I talk with my hands a lot. And yeah, so we'll see how this goes. I'm hoping that the audio isn't horrible and that I've got everything set up correctly. But yeah, shall we dive in? I think we shall. Let's get into it. Over the last 3 episodes, we've been unraveling the life and the legacy of Lizzie Lape, the queen of the Tenderloin. We've explored her rise from small town scandals to becoming one of Ohio's most notorious madams. Along the way, we've uncovered tales of ambition, heartbreak, and resilience through multiple marriages, courtroom battles, and her ever-evolving business empire. If you haven't listened to episode 1 through 3, I highly encourage you to go back, start from the beginning. You'll get a full picture of Lizzie's world and the many twists and turns that brought her to where we are now. Trust me, you do not want to miss that juicy journey. Now, as we move into episode 4, we'll dive deeper and deeper into Lizzie's story. We'll uncover her 6th marriage, a new home in Stowe, and the challenges she faced in Morian at the White Pigeon, and her never-ending reform movements. Plus, we'll explore how her son Arville grew up and stepped into the family business, the arrival of a new baby, and a shocking marriage that this time, not Lizzie's. Stay tuned because the drama only intensifies from here. Let's get into it. So with that, you know what time it is. Grab yourself a cocktail, a mocktail, coffee, whatever you fancy. Today, I have a Sprite tequila with a Chamboy, which is a black raspberry liqueur floater. And by floater, I mean sinker, because it just sank to the bottom. I had a coworker tell me that if I was a tequila fan, Sprite and tequila go very well together, and I never had it, so here we are. Yeah, that's what I have. And whatever you have, I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you sit back and you enjoy the journey we're about to go on. And cheers, 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 cheers. Let's jump back into the life of the Ohio's infamous Madam Lizzie Lape. Cheers. Okay, so I didn't have regular Sprite. I just have the new like vanilla frost Sprite. That goes very nicely. That's very yummy. I have to shut the door a little bit. Hold on. When we last left Lizzie in 1895, she was navigating the aftermath of her 5th divorce, this time from John DeWitt, the father of her 4th husband. Yes, that's why you need to go back and listen to all the episodes, because when I said the tea, baby, the tea, okay? Anyways, so she's getting divorced from her 5th husband, who was the father of her 4th husband, Harry. If that's not enough drama for you in 1 year, Lizzie was also recovering from a Thanksgiving mishap that left her with severe burns after a gasoline stove explodes. And as if her plate wasn't already full, she welcomed a baby girl named Edna, whose story remains a mystery to history. After her christening, Edna disappears from historical records, leaving us wondering what became of this child. But Lizzie isn't one to let life slow her down for long. Her resilience and ambition remain at the forefront as she moves forward, ready to take on new challenges and opportunities. So let's pick up right where we left off and dive right back into the ever-fascinating life of Lizzie Lape. And like clockwork, Lizzie proves once again that she isn't one to stay lonely for long. The same year as her divorce from John, Lizzie crosses paths with Charles W. Vaughn, a man also from Akron, Ohio. Charles' story was already filled with its own heartbreak. His first wife, Ella Vaughn, tragically passed away on January 8th, 1895. During childbirth. Just 14 days later, the newborn baby girl also succumbed, leaving Charles grieving and grappling with immense loss. A father of 3 already, the weight of his wife's death and his worsening drinking habits led Charles to send his children to live with their grandparents. Searching for a fresh start, or perhaps just an escape, Charles moved into a boarding house at 206 North Howard. And who should be the proprietor of that boarding house? None other than Lizzie DeWitt herself, soon to be Lizzie Lape. Just 6 months after Charles's wife's tragic passing, and only 3 months following Lizzie's divorce from John, the two found themselves embarking on a new chapter together. On July 14th, 1895, Charles and Lizzie were married in an intimate ceremony at St. John's Episcopal Church in Cuyahoga Falls. This whirlwind union marked Lizzie's 6th marriage, and as always, her life seemed poised to take another unpredictable turn. Would this new partnership be a fresh start she needed, or would the complexities of their past catch up to them? Meanwhile, in the city of Moraine, a group of citizens are wanting to extend the center street for access by residents living near the Malleable Iron Works by acquiring property through eminent domain. Now, basically the citizens wanted to extend their downtown center into what is known as the red light, like naughty side of the town. So they wanted to do this by eminent domain. Now, what exactly does that mean? Let's discuss. Well, eminent domain is the power of the government to take private property for public use while providing the owner with just compensation. So basically, the citizens of Morian wanted to extend their center street. In order to do so, they would have to do it by taking over private land from landowners. One of those landowners to be affected by this would be none other than the White Pigeon, owned by Lizzie and her son. Well, yeah, technically Lizzie's lawyer, Lozano Dowaters, who was holding the property as a trust for Lizzie's son, Arville, for when he got old enough to take it over. On December 10th, 1895, the Morian Daily Star reported on the court's decision regarding compensation for Lizzie's loss of lands. So basically, she does lose the part of her lands. The verdict awarded her $350 for the property itself and an additional $150 for damages, a total of $500, which might not sound substantial for this time, but likely it did sting Lizzie, given the history of how fiercely she guarded her assets, and losing any of her land was not something she was accustomed to say the least. So in the mid-1890s, reform movements swept across America as well, fueled by figures like Dr. Charles H. Parkhurst. So he was a New York's clergyman, and Dr. Parkhurst in 1892 did a fiery sermon, condemned the rampant evils of prostitution, saloon trade, and gambling in the city. And he basically said it all perpetrated by city corruption of the Tammany Hall. So this basically is, he just has a really intense sermon, fired up, saying like, this is all bad, we condemn it all, and it's all because corruptness in the city and Tammany Hall. What set him apart was his determination to walk the walk, okay? He would venture into the city's underbelly, documenting the vice with camera in tow, then return to the pulpits armed with undeniable evidence. His informed moral authority galvanized reform efforts nationwide, and this would include Morian, Ohio, of course, where the White Pigeon is. By 1895, Dr. Parkhurst had published Municipal Reform Movement in the United States, calling on every citizen to take public action against societal ills. Enter Detective James McElderdarney, a man perhaps more opportunist than moral crusader, but one with his sights set on Morian. While not a Parkhurst acolyte himself, McElderdarney was likely hired by the Morian Park Hustlers, the local reform group, who sought his services to root out vice in the community. McElderdarney had a keen eye for trouble and a knack for making it profitable under the Wynne Law, of course, which we covered the Wynne Law in last episode. Basically, it allowed citizens to sue property owners who were selling liquor in saloons. Okay, it allowed the citizens, even if they were customers, to sue the property owners for compensation. So he, McElderdarney, sorry, fucking names. He was like, I see an opportunity here, and he sure did. His first target, the infamous, of course, White Pigeon. But his investigation didn't stop there. For weeks, he prowled Morian, scrutinized saloon owners operating on Sundays, which was not allowed anymore, tailing pharmacists suspected of shady dealings, and gathering evidence against Browdy houses. McElderdarney became a persistent thorn in the side of Morian's vice community, including Lizzie Lape herself, whose white pigeon was under constant surveillance. As the reform fever heated up, Lizzie and others in her line of business faced mounting pressures, not just from moral crusaders, but from opportunists hoping to cash in on the crackdown. For Lizzie, it was another challenge in her already tumultuous year. And it wouldn't be the last time she found herself in the reform's crosshairs. Meanwhile, Detective McAlderdownry Crusades was not without its detractors, chief among them, the Moorian local law enforcement. While McDowry was busy scoping out saloons and bawdy houses, Moorian's officers grew increasingly irritated, viewing his actions as a direct challenge to their authority. They felt he was stepping on their toes and worse, making them look incompetent or complacent in the eyes of the public. They didn't like that. The tension between McAlderdownry and the local police wasn't just professional. It was personal. Moorian's lawmen prided themselves on maintaining their jurisdiction and didn't appreciate an outsider, particularly one with a reputation for exploiting reform laws for personal gain, encroaching on their turf. The simmering animosity threatened to really boil over, adding yet another layer of complexity to this reform movement in Moorian. Detective James McAlderdownry, for all his fever and supposed moral authority, ultimately proved to be his own undoing. It turns out he wasn't living by the very standards he was so eager to enforce. On September 7th, 1895, the Moorian Daily Star published a rather damning and humorous headline. James was a mistake, or James made a mistake, which? The story detailed how McDowry had invited a young woman to his boarding house, a seemingly minor incident except for the fact that McAlderdownry was a married man. And this young lady was not his wife. The landlady of the boarding house was having none of it and promptly asked the woman to leave, publicly exposing McAlderdownry's hypocrisy. Embarrassed and disgraced, McAlderdownry left Moorian with his tail firmly tucked between his legs. So yeah, he was basically playing a moral detective, but in the low key, which is so common for people like this, he was also doing it. This person he invited back was probably someone he hired, and the boarding lady was like, not on my watch, and she was very quick to let everyone know. But Lizzie wasn't done getting the last laugh. On May 20th, 1896, McAlderdownry faced another blow as the Moorian courts dismissed the first win-law test case in Moorian County. The state of Ohio versus Lizzie Lape. Lizzie's defense? She claimed to be the owner, not the operator, of the white pigeon and denied any knowledge of this alleged illegal activity. Her strategy worked, and the court ruled in her favor, dismissing the case at the cost of the complainant. Once again, Lizzie Lape emerges victorious, outsmarting both the system and her accuser while managing to protect her livelihood. Lizzie's courtroom victory wasn't just a personal triumph. It set a precedent that would ripple through the industry. By successfully arguing that she was merely the property owner and not the operator, Lizzie exposes a glaring loophole in the win law. This ruling provided her and others in the same line of work a convenient workaround. With this strategy in place, building owners could hire management teams to run the day-to-day operations of their establishment while claiming ignorance of any illegal activities happening on their property. When someone attempted to enforce the Wynn law, the owners could simply play dumb and shift responsibility to their managers. This clever maneuver offered a shield of plausible deniability, allowing businesses to continue operating while technically complying with the law, or at least avoiding its harsh penalties. Lizzie's cunning and adaptability not only ensured her own survival, but also provided a blueprint for others in the industry to navigate the increasingly hostile legal landscape. And we love her for it. Cheers to Lizzie. You know, she's a smart cookie. Or at least her lawyers were. Now, at this point in Lizzie's life, she is married to husband number 6, and she is bouncing back and forth between Akron and this new place called Stowe, Ohio. It's possible that she was renting in Stowe, and that was where her main home base was, but we know that she was going back and forth, and that she was traveling a lot. But we also know by 1897 that Charles and Lizzie had officially fully moved to Stowe, Ohio. It's been a while since we've caught up with Lizzie's son, Arville, but as it turns out, big changes were underway for him. By this time, Arville was just turning 19, stepping closer to adulthood and his future responsibilities. His legal guardian, Lorenzo Del Waters, wasn't just fulfilling his duties on paper, he was actively shaping Arville's path. Lorenzo, a seasoned lawyer, became mother and father figure to Arville, nurturing a very close bond that was beyond the typical guardian relationship. Lorenzo introduced Arville to the intricacies of the law, preparing him for the unique challenges he'd face in the future. The mentorship wasn't just about education, it was also strategic. Lorenzo knew that by the time Arville came of age at 25, he would inherit control of the White Pigeon property. And understanding both the businesses and legal landscape would be essential to navigating his inheritance. In these informative years, Lorenzo was equipping Arville with tools to manage the complexities of his legacy, ensuring he would be ready to step into his mother, Lizzie's world with knowledge and confidence. Meanwhile, back in Stowe, Ohio, Lizzie was preparing for another life-changing moment. On December 3rd, 1896, she gave birth to a baby girl named Mary Jennings Bryan with her husband, Charles. Mary was possibly Lizzie's 5th child, as it is believed Lizzie had at least 5 children over the course of her life. However, not all of Lizzie's children remained part of her story, clearly. Only 2 we know mostly what happened to them, and 1 we can assume was given up for adoption. What happened to the other possible 2 children is a mystery to history. Charles' parents were prominent landowners in Stowe, Ohio, and this might have influenced Lizzie and Charles' decisions to establish their home base there. However, after the birth of their daughter, Mary, a new chapter is unfolding. That kind of reflects Lizzie's knack for negotiating or perhaps a deal struck between the couple. It's apparent that Charles wanted to give Lizzie a substantial gift, or maybe this was the arrangement all along, a baby in exchange for land. Shortly after Mary's arrival, Lizzie becomes the sole owner of the George House, which also is known as the Cliff House, a property previously owned by Charles and Eliza Kidney for $2,000. The land was signed directly into Lizzie's name. ensuring her independent claim to the property. Although we know that Charles made a trade for land he previously owned to gain the Cliff House. Whether it was a token of love or a strategic move or part of an unspoken agreement, this acquisition positioned Lizzie once again as a woman with power and property, ready to use it as a foundation for her next endeavor. The George House, with its dramatic views and prime location, symbolizes Lizzie's ability to keep her footing no matter the twists and turns of life. As Arvil grew closer to stepping into his inheritance of the white pigeon, Lizzie began to take more active interest in her son's life. But by 1896, Arvil made a move for himself and he fell in love. The object of his affection, Martha Maddie Hennon, a young woman whose resilience and determination mirrored the tough circumstances that defined her life. Maddie's life, like many women of her era, was marked by hardship. Before the age of 4, her father abandoned her and her mother, Alice Shannon, following the tragic death of Maddie's baby brother, Clarence. Struggling to make ends meet, Alice gave Maddie up for adoption. The records paint Maddie's father as a drunkard and a former clergyman in the Spanish-American War. Though adopted by Barrett family, fate wasn't done testing Maddie. Oh no. Her adoptive father would go on to die very young, and the adoption was terminated, sending Maddie back to her impoverished biological mother. A heartbreaking situation that highlights the brutal realities of this era. Side note, what? An adoption terminated? I didn't even know that was a thing. I thought when legally you are adopted, it's a done deal for you. You're adopted. I didn't think that was something you could just be like, just kidding. Go on. Though Arvil and Maddie's paths might have crossed in Akron during their youth, their love story truly begins to flourish in Stowe. Specifically at Lizzie's newly acquired Cliff House. Much like the White Pigeon, Lizzie had hired a management team to oversee the property. Richard, aka Dick Underwood, acted as bartender and bouncer, while his wife, Lily, ran the house as its manager. A historical brothel GM, if you will. As fate would have it, Maddie had a family connection to the Cliff House. Lily Underwood. That was Alice's sister. So Maddie's mother's sister, aka her aunt. Video version, you might see I have a Dreamy. She is having a day today. She's not feeling I don't know. She's not feeling herself. She's very talkative today. She's been just in the freaking bathtub meowing. And she's my little senior girl. She is an oldie. She's just having a day. She's just been telling me all about it. And so I'm hoping that keeping her in my lap will help her calm down a bit. So if you hear her rustling around, or if you see her rustling around, just know that is what's happening. Anyways, back to Lizzie. When Alice, Maddie's mother, passed away in 1896, leaving 16-year-old Maddie orphaned and alone, Lily will step in. She offered Maddie a job, a place to live at the Cliff House. The work was straightforward, keeping the house clean and making peace with the business of selling bodies. So I want to make it clear here that Maddie was not going there to work with the girls who were selling sex. She was there to housekeep. She already had worked as a housekeeper in Akron, and when Lily found out that her mom passed, she reached out to her and told her, you have a place to stay. You just have to be okay with what happens here at the hotel. And Maddie seemed to be okay with it. So off she went to Stowe, Ohio. It was here, amidst the bustling life of the Cliff House, that Maddie and Arville's love story began in earnest. Despite the unconventional backdrop, their connection blossomed into something remarkable. Marriage bells were ringing at just 19 years old, the same age Lizzie was when she first married Arville's father. Arville was ready to tie the knot to Maddie. Lizzie adored Maddie and was determined to make her son and his new wife feel loved and supported. Now, one thing we haven't fully touched on is just how generous Lizzie was with her family and friends. While her life was full of drama and controversy, she had a big heart for those close to her. So when it came to celebrating her son's wedding, Lizzie spared no expense, of course. Being in the business she was, Lizzie knew how to throw a party. And she wasn't about to let Arville's wedding be anything less than spectacular. The event was a grand affair, one that Stowe would be talking about for years to come. Lizzie even arranged for Robert Kell, a high-standing priest, to travel to her home to officiate not just the wedding, but an entire series of services. The celebration kicked off with the marriage of Arville and Maddie, followed by 2 baptisms, one for Lizzie's youngest daughter, Mary, and one for Lizzie herself. It was a day of joy, renewal, and new beginnings. After the wedding, Arville and Maddie returned to Akron to begin their new life together. Arville is going to start stepping into the role he'd been groomed for his entire life, taking over the White Pigeon, with his new bride by his side and his mother cheering him on. Arville was ready to carry on the family legacy. Lizzie, the ever-protective and shrewd businesswoman, wasn't about to let her son Arville fully take over with the White Pigeon without keeping a very close, watchful eye on him. After all, this was her legacy, her life, her baby. To stay close, but not to step on her son's toes, Lizzie purchased another saloon nearby, not close enough to be in direct competition, but definitely within reach to observe how Arville managed the business. But trouble was brewing, and it didn't take long for tensions to flare between Arville and his 5th stepfather, Charles Vaughan. By November 18th, 1897, the Moran Daily Star was reporting on the conflict. It seems Charles wasn't quite ready to relinquish control of the White Pigeon, despite it now being Arville's domain. Charles' lingering presence and interference created significant friction with Arville, claiming that his stepfather was stepping on his toes and hindering the business. Arville was serious about making the White Pigeon a success, seeing the potential to turn it into a highly profitable venture for himself. But Charles' actions were, in Arville's words, ruining all chances of money making. To complicate matters further, Arville also brought a suit against Charles, alleging that his stepfather owed him $77, a hefty sum for the time. This situation highlighted not just familiar strain, but also the challenges of balancing personal relationships within the business empire. This is something that this was Arville's first time having to manage, but not Lizzie's. And so she kind of went hands off with this one and let her son deal with it. With Lizzie nearby, one can only imagine how she navigated this delicate situation, as she was fiercely loyal to her son, but also tied to her husband. The drama at the White Pigeon was more than just a family squabble, though. It was a power struggle with an ever-growing and ambitious empire. The drama wasn't confined to Akron and Marion, though. Back in Stowe, Lizzie and Charles was facing a new wave of challenges. The Cliff House, their infamous property, was now squarely in the crosshairs of the local authorities. Stowe, a quiet and more conservative town, was determined to rid itself of the riffraff they believed Lizzie's businesses were attracting. This led to Charles and Lizzie being targeted with repeated arrests, making it clear that the town wanted their operation shut down. To make matters worse, Charles seemed to be reverting to his old destructive habits of heavily drinking and causing trouble. At one point, it also seems as if Charles became unfaithful because at one point Charles gets arrested and Lizzie does not bail him out. And later it comes out that would be because she just found out he was cheating the night before. So she said, "Deuces, have a good time in jail." Lizzie, juggling a growing empire, simply didn't have the patience or bandwidth to deal with his antics. By 1898, her plate was overflowing. Lizzie and her family were managing not one, but 3 saloons and a hotel. With the time split between Stowe and Marion, she was just had a lot going on. While these saloons were technically staffed and operated legally, societal pressures and public scrutiny were making things increasingly complicated. The demand for discretion pushed more of the business behind closed doors, with backdeal dealings becoming routine. Payoffs for officials and cut-ins from profits, known as rakes, became essential to things running smoothly. A shadowy but necessary aspect of Lizzie's thriving empire. With the stakes higher than ever, Lizzie found herself navigating an increasingly precarious balancing act. Running a legitimate operation, a hotel on the surface, while managing the under-the-table realities of her business. The challenge at the Cliff House and with Charles was just the beginning of what would be a tumultuous chapter for Lizzie and her sprawling ventures. By August 20th, 1898, trouble was brewing at the Cliff House, and Lizzie had to make some tough calls. Her manager and family connection, Dick Underwood, was arrested for selling liquor at the establishment. An especially problematic issue since Stowe was now a dry town. For those who don't know, dry town basically just means you're not allowed to sell liquor, have liquor. You're not allowed to sell liquor. You can have liquor, but you're definitely not allowed to make a profit off of it. Not something that happens often anymore, but I do think there are still towns, especially in Texas, that are dry towns. The incident pushed Lizzie into full business mode, and within just 4 days, she will file a lawsuit against Dick and his wife, Lily. Her own relatives and trusted managers of the Cliff House. The lawsuit accused Dick of selling liquor illegally and refusing to vacate the property. While it might seem harsh to turn on family, Lizzie's actions were calculated. Under the advice of her lawyers, she needed to distance herself from unlawful activity taking place under her roof, even if she did technically and also very much knew about it. In a town already targeting her operation, this was a necessary step to protect her property ownership and reputation, at least on paper. The decision underscored a defining trait of Lizzie Lape, her unwavering prioritization of business and property over family ties. For Lizzie, survival in her cutthroat world meant making difficult decisions, even if it meant severing connections with those closest to her. The Cliff House drama was just another example of Lizzie's sharp instincts, her relentless drive to maintain control of her empire, no matter the cost. Amidst the tension of lawsuits and business challenges, August 24th, 1898 brought a bright moment for Lizzie and her family. On this day, Arville and Maddie welcomed their baby boy Cleo into the world. The birth of Lizzie's grandson marks a joyous occasion, bringing a sense of unity and celebration to the family, despite the surrounding turmoil. Coincidentally, the lawsuit against Dick and Lily Underwood was dropped the very same day, adding a layer of relief to the happiness, but also awkwardness, I think. While Lizzie was undoubtedly focused on her business dealings, moments like these reminded her of the importance of family and legacy she was building for the future generation. For Lizzie, Cleo's arrival wasn't just a milestone for Arville and Maddie, it was a beacon of hope and continuity during the otherwise tumultuous period. The joy of a new life, even amidst the chaos of running multiple saloons and navigating very much legal troubles, reaffirmed the resilience and enduring spirits of Lizzie's family. The year 1899 proved to be a relentless storm of challenges for Lizzie, packed with lawsuits, personal struggles, and a devastating loss. It began on January 10th, with the Akron Beacon-Journal reporting on Lizzie's legal battle against the treasurer of Summit County, who was attempting to seize the Cliff House over unpaid fines. While there was no follow-up to this story, it's safe to assume Lizzie's triumphed, as she often did when it came to defending her property. However, signs of discord in her personal life were mounting. Her husband, Charles Vaughn, was publicly registered as a drunk alongside H.G. Harburg on May 27, 1899. An embarrassing blemish that hinted at the deeper cracks in her sixth marriage. Side note, the concept of being registered as a drunk offers a fascinating glimpse into the intersections of social control, moral reform, and public policy during the 19th and early 20th centuries. We're going to take a small moment to explore a bit into this because I'm fascinated by this. I didn't know that was a thing, and yeah, I was just curious, so I wanted to do a little digging. Historically, some local authorities kept records of individuals labeled as habitual drunkards. These registers were part of a broader effort to address the perceived societal ills caused by the public drunkenness and alcoholism. Such practices aligned with growing temperance movements, which sought to reduce alcohol consumption associated problems. Those labeled as habitual drunkards often face severe restrictions. They could be barred from buying alcohol, entering saloons, or frequenting public establishments. These measures aim to reduce public intoxication and deterred social disruptive behavior. However, they were also punitive consequences. Repeat offenders might be incarcerated in workhouses, confined in asylums, or subject to public shaming. This approach reflects the moral attributes of the time, which viewed addiction not as a medical condition, but as a moral failing requiring punishment or forced reform. The temperance movement championed many of those efforts, promoting them as solutions to alcohol-related issues. While well-intended, these measures often stigmatized individuals, stripping them of agency and exacerbating their challenges. Lizzie's husband, Charles, being registered as a drunk is a telling detail of this era. While public morality often collided with personal struggles, leaving individuals trapped in a system that prioritized public order over compassion. Then, tragedy will strike the family on September 7th, 1899, when the Akron Daily reported that the Cliff House had burned to the ground at 2 a.m. on Friday, September 1st. While it was fortunate that no lives were lost, the financial impact was enormous. On top of Lizzie's loss, Lizzie lost a lot that day. Family photos, personal belongings, business and legal documents, her home and her dreams. Because mind you, Lizzie was staying there. This was her home, not just a hotel and business. The Cliff House had been a cornerstone of Lizzie's enterprise in Stowe, and its loss dealt a significant blow to her business. And as if that wasn't enough, more legal troubles followed. On October 30th, 1899, the Akron Daily Democrat reported foreclosure. Miss Jane S. Steinbacher has filed a petition on Common Pleas Court asking that a mortgage she holds given by Lizzie be foreclosed. The amount due $1,000. The property covered by title mortgage is the old Kinney House at Stowe Corners. The fire that consumed the Cliff House on September 1st, 1899 remains one of the enduring mystery of Lizzie Lape's story. No culprits were ever identified, and no concrete evidence was left behind. But the list of potential suspects is intriguing to say the least. Let's dive into some possible theories. The townspeople. The Cliff House, with its reputation and frequent run-ins with the laws, was a thorn in the side of Stowe's more conservative citizens. In a dry town aiming to preserve its image of propriety, the hotel and its activities may have been seen as an unwelcome disruption. Could a frustrated group or one person have taken matters into their own hands, deciding fire was the only way to remove the quote-unquote nuisance? Dick Underwood, Lizzie's former employee. Dick Underwood had every reason to hold a grudge. After being arrested for selling liquor under Lizzie's management, he was promptly sued and evicted from the property, losing both his livelihood and his home. Could Dick have sought revenge for Lizzie's ruthless business decisions? Or maybe Charles Vaughn, Lizzie's husband. Charles had plenty of motive himself. The Cliff House was not in his name, nor did he have any control over its operation. Adding to the tension, Charles was spiraling deeper into drinking and increasingly clashing with Lizzie. Could jealousy or frustrations have driven him to destroy what he couldn't claim? The lien holders could have had something to do with it. Just weeks after the fire, foreclosure proceedings were filed against Lizzie by Miss Jane S. Steinbacher, who held a mortgage on the property. The timing of this legal action raises eyebrows. Could financial pressures and a desire to recoup losses have motivated someone to accelerate the process through arson? Or could it have possibly been Lizzie herself? Finally, we cannot overlook Lizzie as a suspect. Ever the suave businesswoman, Lizzie would have recognized that the prohibitionist atmosphere in Stowe was making the Cliff House a financial liability. If the property was insured, a well-timed fire could have been her way of cutting losses and walking away with a payout. While history leaves us without a definite answer, those theories paint a vivid picture of the challenges, rivalries, and conflicts that surrounded Lizzie during this tumultuous period. What do you think happened that fateful night? Was it a revenge, sabotage, or simply a tragic accident? Sadly, the fire at Cliff House had far-reaching consequences beyond Lizzie's own property. The neighboring landowners, whose property sustained severe damage during the blaze, were not about to let the incidents pass without action. They filed a lawsuit against Lizzie, holding her responsible for the destruction caused by the fire. Faced with mounting legal pressures and financial strain of the settlement, Lizzie chose to cut her losses. She quickly resolved the case and made the decision to leave Stowe behind marking yet another chapter of reinvention in her tumultuous life. This period was a defining moment, showcasing Lizzie's resilience and her ability to adapt when circumstances turned against her. But as we know, Lizzie was never one to stay down for long, so where would she go next? And how would she rise again from the ashes of the Cliff House? Stay tuned as we uncover her next moves in the story of Lizzie Lape. And this is where I will leave you for now. But don't fret, I won't be gone for long. And when we meet again, we will be concluding Lizzie Lape's dramatic story. And I promise you, you will not want to miss the ending. It feels weird to say we are concluding her story, but it is time probably. And it has been a fun journey to learn who Lizzie was, learn about her life, and all her ups and downs. Lizzie Lape's life is nothing if not a whirlwind of resilience, renovation, and of course drama in part 4. We saw Lizzie navigating the ups and downs of her businesses and personal life. She manages saloons across Ohio, mentored her son Arville into the business world, and even took time to spoil him and his bride, Maddie, in true Lizzie fashion. But it wasn't all grand parties and happy unions. Legal battles, public scrutiny, and personal tragedies kept Lizzie on her toes for sure. From lawsuits over land and liquor in the fiery destruction of the Cliff House, Lizzie's life seemed to alternate between triumphant and turmoil. As we move into part 5, things are about to get even more chaotic. Lizzie is on the move once again, and so is her son, Arville, as they both tackle new opportunities and challenges. Another marriage is on the horizon, because what's Lizzie's story without a walk down the aisle? But as always, more land deals, business drama, and family complications are waiting in the wings. And another personal, maybe the hardest tragedy of all, will strike, reminding us that even the queen of the Tenderloin is not immune to heartbreak. Don't miss part 4 as we dive deeper into Lizzie's ever-fascinating journey filled with new beginnings, power struggles, and the relentless pursuit of survival. Thank you so much for joining me on this roller coaster of journey through the life and times of Lizzie Lape. Her story is just one thread in a larger tapestry of history that we're weaving together on Paying For It. If you're enjoying the podcast, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you're feeling extra generous, leave a review. It's the best way to support the show and help more history buffs like yourself and curious minds alike find us. Want to dive deeper into Lizzie's world and get a sneak peek at what's coming next? Follow on Paying For It Media, where I share behind the scenes content, photos, and plenty of sassy historical tidbits. And you can also visit us on our website, payingforitmedia.com, for additional resources, updates, and bonus material. And hey, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Reach out, share your favorite moments, and let me know what you like to hear next. This show is as much about you as it is about those untold stories of the past. Until next time, keep it classy, keep it sassy, and never stop uncovering the stories that history tried to hide. See you next time on Paying For It. Goodbye.
I got something between my legs that'll make a dead man come. Oh, that. I got something between my legs that'll make a dead man come. Oh.